All right, it's Friday. That means it's time for the Mailbag edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, where I answer your questions. But first, of course, we got to talk about an answer that Pat Narduzzi gave to one of my questions yesterday. And it might not have been the answer you wanted, but it's the answer you probably knew you were going to get. We'll talk about that, plus take your questions in the mailbag, all here on the Friday edition of the Friday edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, welcome to Friday. Welcome to the Morning Pitt. Welcome to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Welcome to all of those things and more. You know what we do here on Fridays on this particular program. First of all, we ask you to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We tell you about the website, Panther-Lair.com, which I have been accused of promoting too much. And if you think I promote that website too much, you don't know what we're here to do. The whole point of this is to promote the website. That's the business. That's the moneymaker. We want you to go check it out. We do these videos and these podcasts, so you'll go check out Panther-Lair.com. This is a little 20-minute taste of what we have going on there all day, every day, with I think the best and most comprehensive coverage of Pitt sports, football, basketball, recruiting, everything you need to know about Pitt sports. We have it right there at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards to interact with other Pitt fans all day, every day. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. You know what we always talk about on Fridays is how you need to get some sweet Pitt gear from Home Field. HomeFieldApparel.com has some of the best Pitt shirts, Pitt sweatshirts, Pitt joggers, bomber jackets, dad hats, all kinds of things. Some of the best stuff you're going to find. With some designs that I think are just great because they're so classic. They're instantly recognizable as Pitt. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. That's not what they're doing at Home Field. What they're doing at Home Field is taking the old wheels and just making them very, very cool. And then they're putting them on great high-quality products, great high-quality t-shirts, great high-quality sweatshirts, joggers, etc., etc. And I can't recommend them enough. I've got a bunch of Home Field shirts myself. I know a bunch of people who have Home Field stuff, and it's pretty much 100% approval rating. It's really that good. So head over to HomeFieldApparel.com. On your first order, you can get 15% off using the promo code LAIR23, LAIR23. You're going to see it pop up there in that slideshow as it revolves around, and you're going to look at it for the next 20 minutes. And by the end, you're going to be like, I got to go over and check out their Pitt collection at HomeFieldApparel.com. And when I do, I'm going to use the promo code LAIR23 to make sure I get 15% off my order, my first order. You can't lose on that deal. HomeFieldApparel.com. All right. It's the mailbag. That's what we do on Fridays. But of course, we got to start with Pat Narduzzi's comments yesterday. Pat Narduzzi held his Thursday press conference yesterday. And the Thursday, you've probably followed this long enough to know the difference. I mean, you can see the picture there at the top of the screen in the top left corner of Pat Narduzzi's Thursday sit down with the media. On Mondays, he gets up at the podium. We're all in the team meeting room. It's a big room. There's a lot of people, and he's at the podium in front of a microphone, and it's far more formal. Whereas on Thursdays, we all sit down in a conference room. And in that photo, I mean, you can see he's got some TV microphones in front of him. There's a couple TV cameras, but for the most part, it's pretty much just Narduzzi on one side of the conference table and us on the other side. It's a little more informal. It's a little looser. I think Narduzzi's a little looser. He's a little more comfortable in that setting. And so it's just you usually get much better stuff, much better conversation topics and comments and quotes and insight from Narduzzi on Thursdays than you get on Mondays. And somebody pointed out at some point during the week, and I forget who mentioned it, somebody on the message boards or on Twitter or something, that during the Monday press conference this week, nobody ever actually explicitly and directly asked, is Phil Jurkovec starting at quarterback this week? So I asked yesterday. I said, hey, we never actually asked you on Monday, is Phil starting on Saturday night? Pat Narduzzi said, yes. Now, he said a lot of other things after that. He went into a lot of different discussion topics about what that means and what it means for the offense and what they need to do for the offense, et cetera, et cetera. And you can find it all on Panther-Lair.com. If you want to read the whole transcript, we have the video there as well. It's on Panther-Lair.com. It's also right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So you can check all those things and get all the context of Narduzzi's quotes for yourself. But the long and short of it is they're still going with Phil Jurkovec. And there was a point earlier in the week where I think they're going to make a change. Sunday, Monday, I thought they're going to make a change. And I didn't think he would announce it on Monday at his press conference, but I thought it would happen. I thought they would do it. They wouldn't make a big deal out of it. They would just do it. As the week went on, though, I think it became clearer and clearer that they weren't going to do it, that they were going to stick with Phil Jurkovec again. And I don't know what to say about that. I was as surprised as you can get by these kinds of things. On Saturday night in the West Virginia game when they didn't make a quarterback change at halftime, I was surprised by that. I thought they would do it then. I thought that was the time to do it. And if they didn't do it then, I thought, and then he threw 2 more interceptions. I thought, okay, they've got to make a change now. And by all accounts, they haven't. And according to Pat Narduzzi, they won't. They won't make a change heading into the North Carolina game. It doesn't mean they won't make a change in the midst of the North Carolina game. I have to believe that if the struggles we saw last Saturday night in Morgantown show up again tomorrow night at Acrisure Stadium, that a change will be made. I don't think there's any guarantee of that. What I do believe, and this could change and it would signal a significant departure. What I do believe is that ultimately the decision to keep riding with Jurkovec or make a change to Christian Veilleux or Nate Yarnell or you or anybody else, that decision will be made by Frank Cignetti. Pat Narduzzi, among his strengths and his flaws, views himself as the CEO of the football program. And he has said since the day he arrived, I think if you went back, I think it was the day after Christmas in 2014, if you go back to his opening press conference, I believe he talked about being the CEO of the team. And he talked about the coordinators being head coaches of their sides of the ball. The offensive coordinator is the head coach of the offense. Defensive coordinator, head coach of the defense. And as such, Narduzzi wanted to take a hands-off approach. Now, his hands are a little more on with defense, as it were, but particularly with the offense, he wanted to have more of a hands-off approach. I can only assume this is what he has experienced. Maybe Mark D'Antonio had a similar approach back in the day at Michigan State and Cincinnati before that, but that's what Narduzzi has wanted to do. And I think there are various points of evidence for that. I mean, you think about Mark Whipple's offense. Think about how much smack Narduzzi has talked on that offense of not running the ball enough, this and that. We know how much Pat Narduzzi wants to run the ball. So if we know that Narduzzi is committed to establishing the run, he let Mark Whipple run that offense with a very much unestablished running game for 3 years. 3 years. And didn't, which I think, as evidenced by the outcome and the results and the production, never stepped in and said, you need to run the ball more. He let Whipple call the offense he wanted to call. Now, Narduzzi was ready to get rid of him after 2 years, just like he got rid of Sean Watson after 2 years, and he was, ready to move on from Jim Chaney and so on and so forth. That's how he deals with that. I think he very much wants to avoid micromanaging in the course of a season. I think he wants to lay back, let his coordinators do their jobs, make the decisions on personnel, make the decisions on game plans, make the decision on play calling and that kind of thing. As a head coach, I think he views it as his decision on making, 4th down calls, field goals, punts, going for it. I think he views it as his decision to handle the coordinators after the season. If he needs to make a change, if he wants to make a change, that's when he'll sort of make it, that's when he will step in. And the rare example, or the rare situation where Narduzzi did step in with the offense was in 2020. And I think Jim Hammett reminded me of this on Wednesday night during our live stream, that in 2020, after the Notre Dame game, when Pitt was at one of its lowest points, Narduzzi did take more interest in the offense or get more involved with the offense. And it's, you can go back and forth about the impact that it had over the rest of that season, but he did step in that case. I don't know if he's at that point right now. Maybe he is. Maybe he stepped in over the last week to get more involved with the offense and with Frank Cignetti, but by and large, he is hands off with his coordinators. And the decision to stick with Phil Jurkovec last week, in the middle of the West Virginia game, I believe was Frank Cignetti's decision. I think Narduzzi left that decision to Cignetti. Now, what's going to be interesting is whether Narduzzi also left this week's decision to Frank Cignetti, or if he said, I mean, if they start with Jurkovec, then we can only assume that either Narduzzi left it to Cignetti and Cignetti said, I want to stay with Jurkovec, or Narduzzi said, Jurkovec is our guy. I don't think it's out of bounds to say that Narduzzi should step in. And if he sees the performance on the field and believes that was unacceptable, 8 completions, 3 interceptions, I don't think it's out of bounds. I don't think it's unreasonable to say, to feel like Pat Narduzzi should step in and demand a change. And I don't think it would be out of bounds for his position. He is the head coach. He is the CEO. And you might want to avoid micromanaging your coordinators. But at some point, it is on you. It's going on your resume. It's going on Frank Cignetti's resume too, but it's going on your resume that you started the 2023 season 1-2 and went into game number 4 with a quarterback who completed a grand total of 18 passes over the previous 2 weeks while throwing 3 terrible interceptions and at least as many, turnover-worthy plays in the week before. A game where you could not score a touchdown. The only points you managed were field goals. That Narduzzi was just on the screen. That's on your resume. And you are the head coach. You are in position to affect every element of this program. And head coaches sometimes, I think, bog themselves down with every minute detail of the program. This is not a minute detail. This is a big one. This is more important than what color the office chairs are. This is more important than what color the trim is that you painted the baseboards in the facility, or, whether you have the right kind of towel dispensers in the bathroom or something like that. And I think head coaches do get bogged down in all of those details that are largely, I don't want to say they're inconsequential, but compared to the decision on a quarterback, they are. And Narduzzi can say all he wants that he's not a quarterback guru and that Frank Cignetti is the guy who knows the offense and he knows more offense. But if you're Narduzzi, you have to step back and say, are we giving ourselves the best chance to win? And Frank, just because you believe we're giving ourselves the best chance to win, I don't agree. And I've been coaching football long enough that I'm going to say we need to make a change. So draw up a game plan for Christian or draw up a game plan for Nate. But I don't know if Narduzzi is going to do that. I don't know if he's going to say that. Ultimately, he's going to have to wear it. If this season continues in the direction of the last 2 weeks, it's going to be on him. And he can get rid of Frank Cignetti at the end of the year and say that was the problem with the offense and this and that. That he can do that. But guess what? You're the coach who wears the record. When you had Sean Watson for 2 years and you went 12-14 over those 2 years, you can talk about Sean Watson, but he's a footnote. That's your record. If I look at the Wikipedia page, that's on Pat Narduzzi's record. So this decision comes down to him. Whether he defers to Cignetti on the decision of who to start on Saturday night or he makes the decision himself, it's going to reflect on him. My thought is Jurkovec starts, and if he stinks out the joint in the first quarter, they make a change. That's my guess. No idea if that's going to happen or not. That's my guess. All right, let's get into some mailbag questions, see what people have had to say. Got one or two questions, to wrap up from last week. 121 Rum asks, what's your go-to cure for Pitt loss depression? You can't just compartmentalize and forget the game like the rest of us. I can't. There's what I can do is just, obviously over the course of the week, I have to keep writing about it and talking about it and watching the tape and breaking down stats and finding new ways to say that, how bad it was. So I can't really get away from the games and take a break. And really, are you taking a break from the message boards? Who wants to take a break from the message boards? Yeah, that's sometimes the best and worst part of it, is digging into the message boards and getting into those conversations with Pitt fans. What I do after every game is I try and find those things they did well and try and find those things they didn't do well and try and find, solutions on how they can improve where they didn't do well and find ways they can continue doing the things that they did do well. That's what it comes down to for me. I just approach it as analytically as possible, I guess. As sort of, I mean, I'm using words like analytically or scientifically. I'm not nearly that smart, and it's not nearly that serious. But get lost in the details. Get lost in the data and the stats and try and figure out what they can do better next time. Let's see. Pitman 2003 says, what are your sources telling you about the state of the locker room? I mean, not a lot of sources. I mean, they keep it pretty tight down there. I think, I mean, there's frustration, to be sure. They felt like they lost 2 winnable games, but teams usually feel like every loss is a winnable game. So there's frustration. I don't think there's any question about it. I think there are players in the locker room who would like to see what Christian Veilleux can do in a game. There's probably players in the locker room who've seen Christian Veilleux, if he's had struggles in practice, they've seen that and said, well, I think we should stick with Phil. I would say this. There's probably players in that locker room who believe they should give Christian Veilleux a shot. I think there are also plenty of players in that locker room who look and say, look, Phil has been pretty bad, but we're not blocking very well for him. The receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, nobody has done a great job so far this season. And it's unfair to put it all on Phil when everybody else is kind of screwing up around him and screwing up for him and making his life more difficult. I think that sentiment exists in the locker room as well. So I don't think it's major dissent. I don't think it's like half the team is going to transfer if Jurkovec starts another game. I don't think it's anything like that. It's disappointment and frustration, which you should have after you lost 2 games, in the way that they lost them. But I don't think there's major issues forming, not yet at least. Pitman 2003 also asked, what is your guess on the status of Gonçalves? I mean, it's entirely a guess, but I mean, I'm not optimistic. I don't know. I don't know. I sort of feel like it might be Ryan Baer time, and maybe for an extended period of time. We'll see. Rockhen says, do we have a new offensive coordinator in 2024? Well, here's what I'll say, Rockhen, and I've sort of said this a few times. I'm just playing the odds here. Jim Chaney, 1 year. Matt Canada, 1 year. Sean Watson, 2 years. Mark Whipple, 3 years, but it was only supposed to be 2. So nobody has really made it longer than 2 years around here, unless you have what ends up being a Heisman Trophy finalist whose return is is contingent on your coordinator coming back for a 3rd year. I think the odds are against guys lasting here more than 2 years. Offensive coordinators lasting here more than 2 years. Certainly, if this season continues on the path it's on, if the offense doesn't show major improvement, I think that only makes it even more likely. It's just, you just play the odds here. You have not really ever having extended stays for the offensive coordinators prior to this, and then the offensive struggles they're having this year. Smenges says, did Baer impress you in the West Virginia game, and do you think Pitt needs to try someone different at center? No, I mean, Ryan Baer struggled. He came in off the bench, difficult situation, playing a difficult position, an important position, and it's not like he just lit the world on fire. He gave up some pressures, gave up a sack. No, he didn't impress me. Did it change my thoughts on Ryan Baer and how good he can be and what his ceiling is? No, I don't think it did that either. I think maybe it changed my thought slightly on his readiness. But if Gonçalves is out for an extended period of time, then I think Baer is going to climb the readiness scale pretty quickly and pretty considerably. And I think if he has to play the next 5 games, I bet after 2 or 3, he's probably going to be playing pretty well. I think he's got that natural talent. He's just got to get used to playing in a game and being on the field. And now he's going to do it against all ACC competition plus Notre Dame. And do I think Pitt needs to try someone different at center? Not really. I think Jake Cradle's fine. He's not great, but I think he's fine. I think Pro Football Focus from the West Virginia game, Cradle, Blake Zabovic, and Matt Gonçalves, none of them were charged with allowing a pressure. Jason Collier was charged with some, Branson Taylor was charged with some, and Baer was charged with some. But those 3 guys, center, left guard, left tackle, starting center, left guard, left tackle, did pretty well. According to Pro Football Focus, and I think Cradle's been fine. He had the Cincinnati game was a major challenge. I mean, that was really, really tough, and he's playing next to a true freshman. against a really tough matchup of defensive tackles. I mean, I'm not overreacting to that one. I don't think he's going to face a challenge like that too often this season, and I think he's fine there. Last one here. Bob Free asks, if you could have a lobotomy and like any other team, what team would it be? That's an interesting question. Like, if I was just going to pick a favorite college football team, I mean, geez, do I just go with like a blue blood? Do I pick like Michigan or a Texas or Alabama? It seems lame to do that, but like, what else are you gonna do? You know, like, you're not gonna pick Penn State. You know, as a kid, I kind of like Notre Dame. Would I pick Notre Dame? I mean, if you could like completely disassociate yourself from any Pitt connections whatsoever, I mean, most people from Pennsylvania probably would end up as Penn State fans. I mean, really. Maybe Cincinnati. Plucky upstart. Probably not too expensive to get tickets to the games. You can drive out there, spend the night. Cincinnati's a good city. Maybe I would be a Cincinnati fan. Would you be a Cincinnati fan? You know, they're in the Big 12 now. So you're going to be able to get their games on TV. You'll be able to see them pretty often. Again, just reasonable driving distance. Good city. I like Cincinnati as a city. Cool little stadium. Probably able to get tickets. They're competitive enough. Sort of generally speaking, year to year. Maybe I'd be a Cincinnati fan. That might fit for me. I don't know if I'm a, I just don't know if I don't know if I could vibe with like being like a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan. Give me Cincinnati. I think I'll take Cincinnati or maybe Louisville. Yeah, not really. There's something weird about Louisville. I really like the city of Louisville. I like their stadium. Something about Louisville athletics. I don't know. I think Cincinnati might be the move. Football and basketball too. Might as well stick with it, right? Cincinnati. Leave your comments. Same question to you. I'll read you Bob Free's question again. If you could have a lobotomy and like any other team, what team would it be? Let me hear your comments. I kind of like, aiming low and going with Cincinnati. Maybe that would be my jam. I like it. Let me know what you think. What you would go with? Would you be a West Virginia fan? Would you rather be? Would you be a Penn State fan or a West Virginia fan? Which one would you pick? I might pick West Virginia just because it's a shorter drive, among other reasons. All right. Thanks so much for all the questions. I appreciate everybody who chimed in on the mailbag. Make sure you go check out Home Field at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code LAIR23 to get 15% off your first order. And, of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all the Pitt sports news. And then right here, YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com for all of the Pitt video content. Like and subscribe. Oh, and hit the bell button. I heard you're supposed to tell people to hit the bell. Live stream tomorrow night. Don't forget. Probably going to start around 1 a.m. It's going to be late. We're going to drink, and we're going to talk about Pitt, North Carolina. So tune in tomorrow night, 1 a.m. right here, YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If the time changes, I will let you know, but that's our tentatively scheduled time for the post-game show, 1 a.m. after Pitt, North Carolina at Acrisure Stadium tomorrow night. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you've had a great week. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your Saturday because you have all day to sit around on Saturday. We'll talk to you after the game tomorrow night right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.